Answer!
Actually, that really, I
You
went
just
that.
pop your shoulder out.
Wow,
Yeah.
dropped in. We just dropped straight in.
Just like Radian in that episode where he just dropped in the middle of the sky underneath the grate. Dropped in the air.
Yeah, I mean,
dropped to the floor.
We can start.
Some choices.
We can start at the end and work back, or would we like to start from the beginning and work forward?
Happy to start wherever you want to start.
Let's start from the beginning. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the whole first half of that in particular. I think I said to you guys before, like, this whole chunk is so sandbox and is so up to you. I can now kind of reveal my plans.
What did you think? Yeah.
So here was my original plan. My original plan was to, when you got to the Somnium outpost, I assumed you'd attack it. I was going to have all of them. I also was hoping that you'd kind of, which you sort of did, think that the Gloam were maybe using forced labour, which they're not, as you now recognise. But I was going to have, not everyone in Haven is necessarily a child of the Midnight Moon, but they're all kind of going that way. And so I had this idea that I'd roll and see if there were any children of the Midnight Moon working that night. And if they were, and Dolly appeared as Dolly, they were going to run and tell everyone. And then I was going to try and ambush you next to that lake that I described. I have a battle map of that ambush, like, ready to go. Different people in the trees, like, because they know that's the only road to Haven. And if you're the Midnight Moon, they were going to try and ambush you, and they were going to say, we don't want to hurt you, we just want to understand what's going on here. And they were going to put you in these cells until they could figure out what the hell was going on. So I had the cells ready. Like, I've had this building ready to lock you up in. And I remember listening or watching a really old episode of Running the Game, the Matt Colville YouTube thing, where he talks about forcing his players to surrender and what a dangerous, dangerous thing it is. Because if you force players to surrender, there is always a chance they're going to fight to the deff. And do you want a TPK on your hands? Like, do you want that? Do you want those coffins on your conscience?
And that's what we would have.
Yeah, and you would have. If you decide to, because I don't have stats for the mass of people, but essentially I would have come up with. I would have kind of used a swarm stat, like they would have been acting like a load of rats or acting like a load of spiders or something. But they, like everyone there would be against you. They would have been very unlikely to kill Dolly, but the rest of you are fair game as far as they're concerned. And so the fact that you just walked in there, and I went into this episode being like, they're just walking in. You're just walking in. I think you walking in is wonderful. I love it. I love how much it speaks to like this idea of we have to find different ways of approaching the same problem. And actually it kind of went really well until it really didn't.
Why didn't it go well?
Yes.
Well, or are we derailing the story?
No, I don't think so. Just to close, like, I didn't want to put you in a situation where you felt like you wanted to fight to the death and you were all going to die, because I just think that's not great. I always want to give you kind of as many options as I can and moments. I don't know if you're going to... In the cells, when I was imagining you being in the cells, I was like, well, if it was me... Maybe Kel can get out. Maybe we just need Kel out. As long as one of them can get out and do the stuff and wild shape and become a spider and up he pops.
We spoke about that.
then there's hope. And actually then there's quite fun stuff where there's a few of you who can't get out of cells who are just talking to each other, and we'll be down there for maybe a session and there'll be some roleplay moments and it becomes like a solo mission for Kel, or maybe a solo mission for Radiant, or if Dolly had used Dimension Door again or something like that, you're kind of going, oh cool, there's all these different sort of things we can do. But I didn't know how it was going to play out. And the opening with you guys at the gate, I just thought from what everyone was doing, like it just felt like really fun storytelling. It just felt very different to anything we've ever done. And indicative of you guys just trying stuff. Also, you, Aoife, are not a person who loves being the centre of attention, so how do you find Dolly being the one that everyone is staring at the entire time?
Well, I mean, it's funny because, like, she has a bard, and sort of like that means, she obviously has a level of natural charisma, but that doesn't necessarily mean she likes being center of attention. And I think when she wants to be in the spotlight, it's always on her terms. And so this being very much not on her terms makes her incredibly uncomfortable. So I think like the fact that everyone is there, I think she really wanted her friends there at all points, which is why I'm really glad that I got that nat 20.
Yeah, yeah, because there was a nat 1 initially, right? Who rolled the
Me.
nat 1? You rolled the nat 1. Because essentially what's happening off screen is Celandine's going to Nox and going, oh my God, she's here. She's literally here. The person you've told us all about is here. He's not stupid, and therefore isn't going to be like, bring them all up.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really lovely, the use of the information and making it sound like a vision. And it's not I's strong point. It's not what you're built for, mechanically, class-wise. It's not even how you role play. I'm not particularly aware of you ever in a real serious moment trying to deceive or perform. And I thought that was like the most fun nat 20.
I saw it as like a moment of I learning from the others and picking up things, something that he would never have done before because he's just so kind of, well, I say what it is and everything is what it is and it's just a totally open book. So to then be like, actually, I've got an idea because I've seen how the other people do this sort of thing and how they might use like a spell or whatever or use words to trick and deceive. So I'm going to try and do that now. Because as well, there's another bit just off the back of that where I used a simile. And again, it's like a moment of I learning and understanding, and I wanted to push I forward with the words that he was using. This I did it a few times, where like little things of the idea of like starting to actually pick things up from everyone, and learn things.
I'm sure themselves is going to love that.
Yeah.
It's non-kobold kobold. Can't wait for that reunion. But it was exactly as Aoife said, I think in between films, like, that's when the dice tell a story, right?
Yeah.
Aoife was like, I want to bring my friends, nat 1. And someone going, I'm going to try, nat 20.
Yeah.
You're coming along for the
I
ride.
was surprised that you let them go just the two of them.
I felt like that.
I mean, there's very little you can do mechanically.
Yeah.
At that point, like the dice have told.
Celandine had kind of...
my only option would have been to try and intimidate my way up there. And then as a player, not a character, I felt like it is not for me to be there. This is about Aoife and Dolly, and the dice had made a decision, and then I would have been artificially trying to put myself in that place. So I just felt like, no.
It ain't about you.
No, it's not. So we're going to do our own thing.
And our relatively successful perception checks told us that it wasn't about us. Going up to Celandine and having those.
Oh, the
moments.
insight and all that.
Yeah, the insight stuff. Insight. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. Okay.
We didn't belong there.
We did. Yeah,
It would have been nice as players because that's the one conversation I was dying to hear, and I have a no listening to things I'm not in the room for rule.
Yeah.
But I don't think we were meant to be there, so I didn't want to try.
As a listener, as an enjoyer of this show, I wouldn't want Radiant to be there in that moment.
Yeah.
It just ain't about. It's just not about them. And I think the beauty of, and like skipping a little bit ahead, I think the beauty of how this episode ends is really intriguing because it is entirely now you have this confrontation alone. Like you're back where you started.
It's really split.
But there's a difference because she at least as long as she's in front of people, she's safe. Yeah. Whereas you guys aren't.
It's interesting what you're saying there because as soon as that nat 20 happened, it was like, oh yeah, great. And then as soon as we sat back down and we got into the moment, I very quickly had that feeling of going, it's not about me.
Yeah.
But that's what I was just saying. I
like,
is such a different character that if you're going to have someone, you want that juxtaposition of I would then be the right person.
Yeah.
It's like the time, because when you've been watching it back, because behind the DM screen, and I was writing the little bits for you, and it was like when you two went into the Council of Equals.
Oh, yeah.
You've got kind of the stoic, more sensible, the person is essentially going to, I suppose, lead the narrative. And then you've got, I adds something without taking away, so it could only have been you.
You actually had great insight as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like, it made sense.
I also think there's something very narratively neat about Dolly and I, who are sharing this
Arc, yeah.
this arc.
I got something because in this interaction,
Oh baby, I know.
careful
Baby,
now.
I know what I'm doing. No, it's
I know,
okay.
I know, but
So here's what I will say is I'm going to take off my
You've
natural.
done
I'm going to
so
take off
well
my
to do
natural
that.
6 branded denim jacket.
We
Oh,
can't
come on,
have the
take
air
off my
conditioning
shirt.
on when you film because it does kind of play with the mics a bit, and this room gets warm.
Hottie.
I would say I am very happy to discuss that conversation because I was there for all of it, and I will tell you
Yeah.
all of it. I would assume we don't need to role play that at the table.
Fair.
So essentially, I mean, maybe you describe it, like your perception of what it was, because obviously I know everything that's going
Yeah.
on. I know everything that's true and everything that's not.
I mean, yeah, so she's come, like she said to you, Ellen, you know, wants this confrontation, has been waiting for it for a long time, nearly a decade, because this is the person that's, like, ruined her life. And, like, walking in and thinking, I might kill him. I might do it. But I think, like, in the moment, he essentially tried to disarm her, saying, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Didn't, like, the web lied to you, all this stuff. But
how much does his
it was fairly convincing, but only she knows who he is.
he's
Like-
also meant to look like, in my head, by the way, as a reference. You know the Road to El Dorado? Mm-hmm. You know Tulio and Miguel?
Yeah.
You know Miguel, who's the blonde one with the... He looks... Yeah, that's in my head what he looks like.
it's interesting that because there were little things as you were saying, and you were sort of saying about, you know, I know you.
Yeah.
Because
You were you convinced?
I
by
was
him?
getting like, oh my God. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why
And
I'm glad
then-
there was a witness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because,
and
like,
then so basically,
So he went... Like, Knox's first port of call was, I have no idea why you're angry with me. Genuinely.
gaslighting.
So triggering. It was so triggering.
I think he said, like, you're the only thing, like, loving you is the only good thing I've ever done in my entire life. I hate who I am, and you essentially helped me find a way of trying to be a good person, and I don't know why you think I gave you over to the web. I would never do that, and when have the web ever told you the truth? And then he kind of went on to say that he came to this forest because he was just so ashamed. He said that essentially the web half killed him and threw him out of the city. He didn't even know initially that Dolly was in the web, and that he came to the forest to die alone because he was just so fucking pathetic. And then discovered something to do with the mushrooms, discovered that there was a power in these mushrooms beyond what he realised, and that he decided to sort of build himself up to a point where he could be the person that all these waifs and strays needed him to be.
yeah, the way he told it, it was like, it just sort of happened. Like, I just apparently am like,
honestly,
so
the
great.
way Harry did it, I was like,
I was convinced.
I'm fully disarmed by it
Yeah.
until you kind of knew what buttons to press.
Yeah.
And there was a moment at which it was almost like looking at some like beautiful gold thing, and then Dolly just kind of went up and just gave it a little scrub, and then like the gold leaf kind of came off, and there was a moment where the real
mask
person
slips.
underneath, just the mask slipped, and boom, and suddenly, I not even just like, oh yeah, it's kind of, I was fully like, oh, is there going to be a real twist here that he was actually, he's actually a decent guy and there's been some mistake, and in that moment I was like, oh fuck no, I see you.
Yeah.
Goose was full of
You're
goose.
you're not a.
You know what it is to be really self-indulgent for a minute. If back in my, if this was to be a TV show, the part I would be, I'm not aesthetically right for him, but energy-wise, Knox is the kind of parts I used to play quite a lot, and I'm really comfortable in that deeply mistrustful, manipulative, Machiavellian. I really enjoy working in that space. I find it really fun.
Ethelwald?
Well, essentially, it's just like a much more sophisticated version of that. And so, and also they're just NPCs that I really like. I really like being Knox, and I really like being this leader of the Gloam who's super condescending and really supercilious. And that they're the gears I'm really comfortable in as an improviser. It's just kind of nasty and gaslighty, and Knox. I think I mentioned this. I was really toying with, like, I needed to figure out what accent. I wanted to do it in my own voice, and I was running it past some of my writing team, and they were like, don't do it in your own voice because actually it can be really weird when it can break the illusion when a DM kind of break the magic of it if the DM is just using their own voice. And I toyed with trying to do a Northern Irish accent, which I've sort of half done for the Leader of the Globe. But then I originally thought it would just be the two of us in a room, and I didn't want you to feel self-conscious about your accent because I'm doing a worse version of your accent.
But the quality of his voice did change in that moment as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's still like...
I've got to say, fucking,
It was
you
amazing.
guys didn't see it. Obviously, like, go back and watch it. He forgave some fucking good acting in there.
It was so good. It was so good. It was real.
Really good acting. There's a moment of like vulnerability in there where you basically almost see like the little girl inside Aoife that's there going like, I felt abandoned and scared and alone and I trusted you.
Guess what? She's pulling from past experience.
And I felt that there was a moment in the way you responded with your acting, like you responded that sold me. That's why, because what he was giving was so convincing. But then when you kind of gave that little vulnerable
there you
moment,
are.
before that, when he was selling it, there was a moment where you kind of hesitated, and I was like, fuck, even Dolly's like,
not sure. I was
like,
really hoping that you would at least play, that you, Aoife, would even play along with the idea that Dolly was unsure. And I was really glad that you did. That you didn't just stonewall it and be like, no, you've
that's not
lied
fun.
before,
That's
you'll
not
lie again.
fun. Yeah.
But I can't remember what it was. But you said something to him where it started to slip, and you said, "There you are." I think it was when he started talking about how powerful he was going to be, and he has made a deal, seemingly, where he found these mushrooms that are very powerful, and he's been leading the globe into some caves not far from here, some hidden caves which have mushrooms and gems and minerals and all manner of good things, and in return for that he is going to be given Barun. He is going to be the king of Barun, and he wants Dolly to be the queen of Barun. Now, I wrote all that long before you ever had your vision of your worst fear being Barun on fire and you being the queen of all of it. So that was, if you went back and watched, I think you'd,
do you know what also came through in it was the moment the mask kind of just around the time the mask slipped, you gave the liar's smile, the deceiver's smile, which is a tell, often happens with psychopaths and sociopaths, like basically people who take a joy from feeling like they've convinced and tricked someone. And at the moment you felt like you might be just trying to trick or convince, there was the ever so slightest little turn of the mouth. And it's like, that's such a giveaway moment because they take a joy in that moment going,
I've
got
done
you.
it.
He
And it broke after that.
he is in a lot of ways like, and there will be more of him. There has to be now. But he is like the most troubling NPC I've ever we've. And then and again this was I can't give too much away actually, but he claimed responsibility for load falling.
That's cool.
And he
other stuff.
And he said essentially.
And he was bragging about it.
He was bragging about it. He was
Yeah.
like, the greatest fortress in the world fell without a single drop of blood spilled. Can you say the same thing about Mouse? Can you say the same thing about Brack? And she was like, because she said, how are you going to get Barun? He was like, I've done it before. So it was really, really fun. And you guys can, if you want to, if you are minded that way, you can go and have a look.
I was happy with his simile. He's learning.
Yeah.
When he was like,
That was very good as well.
Oh, it was great, yeah.
because basically, he was talking about how, breaking into impregnable fortresses and stuff like that. And then I being like, all right, well, you talk about all these impregnable fortresses, but you and your ego just cracked your own fortress just wide open, and we just saw straight into that. The idea
It was
of,
real nice.
we saw straight through this fortress you think you've got. Boom, your ego just cracked it open.
And then you have this moment where he calls out. What? Obviously, you guys are just outside and all this sort of stuff, and you've now got quite used. We've done a load of in and out over the last few eps. What are you thinking? How is it to feel like this isn't just conversations between two players thrashing out whatever interpersonal issues they might have? This is, you know who he is,
But we can't affect it. To be a little bit behind the curtain is B plot. A plot's going up there. This is the stuff that's the headline for the episode. This is what it's about. And B plot is us existing down there. And as with all B plots, they end up becoming kind of the main thrust of things later on. But ultimately, like, the narrative is Dolly and Knox, and we cannot take away from that narrative. We could never interfere. We could never storm into the room. We can never do any of those things. We can do shit around it, but as long as we preserve the sanctity of that moment, then I think everything else is kind of fair game. A little bit.
You did your first death save though, so that.
Oh yeah, and do you want to say what you rolled?
Yeah, was it a 3?
It was a 3.
I don't mind. Like I think it's super interesting, and like he's just useless. And I really wanted to call on the deck of many friends at that moment that I rolled a 4 for chromatic orb.
Glad you didn't.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I'm glad you didn't.
But I think it would be. Yeah, I'm kind of glad I didn't. Now thinking about it, it's an interesting thing. He has this kind of crutch, which is the deck of many friends, which he can use, and as you will see, he's getting more free in using what that is, and what it means, and it is kind of like his superpower in a little bit of ways. But I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I kind of, because I was about to do it, and then you did your bit down there, and I was like, oh, I'll wait until that to finish, and then I kind of realised it went on a little bit longer. So I was like, I can't really narratively. It seems a bit.
We
like
can't
I'm
retcon
proactively doing
anything
it.
from the deck.
We would have ended up in, I think, bigger trouble. I think even if the kind of whatever card we'd pulled, if it had gone our way, we were still in a scenario where half of us were still in jail cells. You were still upstairs by yourself. People are still coming. Like, the deck wouldn't have solved any of that.
No.
That was a clutch move from Kel, by the way. I think that was the right thing to do to stabilise and then bounce
Get
back.
out.
So,
Because it shows you that we're weak by ourselves, really.
So then, obviously, you're arrested, and you're placed in the cells, and kind of Kel hesitated, and Radian just acted.
Just went,
And acted, I think, from the outside, in the least optimal way he's ever acted. It's a borderline suicidal thing to do. It's only not suicidal because Kel got you out of there.
Yeah.
was he just freaked, like from being in the cell, just needed to get out of there?
That was the thinking, was just get out, get out, get out. And I think, you know, it's a. If the group doesn't make a decision quick enough, Radiant's going to do something. Because it's like, sometimes it's like, we can do this, we can do this. Like, yeah, great, we'll do something. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be, the thinking was, I'm going to Misty step up there, I'm going to try and find a way of getting you guys out, but that didn't happen, I'm in a battle.
Did we end up down there because of something that happened up there? Roles that went wrong? Was that always going to be kind of the plan that we'd be taking? Or was it because when you came in and we were being arrested, is it because a conversation had gone in a certain direction?
Yeah. Yes.
Because something must have happened
yes.
for us to go from being your friends to arrest them.
It went to... It actually ended up being very, very useful that I was up there for Knox. Because Knox, at a certain point, said, you care about him. And Dolly said yes. And he said, well, then you'll need to keep him safe. And you'll keep him safe by doing what I need you to do. So you became collateral.
Yeah.
But actually, it was interesting because as a DM, you know, some people call lots of roles. I call quite a lot of roles because I think rolling is fun. But every time you call a role, there's a chance that it's like a Roman road, right? There are no curves when you call rolls. It's just a series of straight lines and then a corner and then another straight line. Yeah. And I was wary of doing that in just role play too much. I think there was one insight roll where you rolled insight against his deception or persuasion, and he beat you. You couldn't get a read on him, but you didn't feel like he was lying. I can't actually remember if he was at that point.
And to be fair as well, like I don't even roll low on that.
No,
because
he has.
I imagine.
But like I rolled a 16.
Yeah.
It's not even low.
But he'll be.
But
He got a 20.
Right.
He got a 21.
Yeah.
But what he wanted was essentially, I think, for Dolly to believe what he told her and to say that she wanted to rule Barun with him and that she loved him. So unless he gets that, he's unsatisfied with the outcome. And he's waited long enough for her to be here. He's waited 9 years to see her, so he can wait a little longer and let her stew.
Totally forgot to say as well, he revealed that he took the Gloam to the caves and was like, because he knew what they were looking for, and he took them there to...
He said they want to do something at the very deepest levels of the cave, so he took them there.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
Nice.
then, yeah,
Well,
so then...
he didn't identify them as kobold caves.
No, but like, so then I, in that moment, then was like, oh, fuck you. Like, there was like an extra... Do you know what I mean? There was an extra...
You're like torn. You're like, hi, Dolly, but also...
Also, fuck you, and this guy has
But also,
led them
yeah.
to where they want to be and stuff, and yeah.
Been working behind the scenes on a lot of stuff that we've heard about.
Really glad I hid my dagger.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah,
It was because when we went to Baroon and met the council for the first time, I wouldn't give it up there.
Yeah.
So my first thought was, if I'm going to be arrested, I'm not giving it up here either.
Yeah.
So I'm just going
Smart.
to fucking
Yeah.
hide it.
And it came in very handy.
And also, this is the sort of thing where you learn characters really as much as players, that if you were ever going into a situation like this again, I think it would be very likely for I to say, I want to make sure my lockpicks are stowed somewhere that no one can find them, just in case we get separated.
talked
We were
about
literally
this.
saying before we start, like when we nipped out for the loot, I was saying throughout the whole process, I was getting ready to go and I hide my lockpick, and I was about to say it, but then things kept happening, and by that time, we'd reached there, and it was like, I can't say that. I can't go.
Yeah,
Oh, and by the way,
I was hidden my lockpick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's kind of in a way, I kind of saw that as, well, in the moment, it's almost like everything happened too fast for him. In the same way that so many things were being said that I didn't manage to say what I wanted to, but actually in the moment it would be like so many things were happening that he didn't get his.
And I was really quite lenient in terms of you guys moving through the gates with this throng of people and being able to have private conversations and people not hearing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's tough because obviously, particularly because that's like a really narration heavy, and I'm really trying to set an atmosphere, and it was much more written than a lot of the intro stuff that I normally do, and a lot more more written than a lot of the scene setting, or like the eyes everywhere and all this kind of stuff. And so it gets you into it can get into a space where it feels like I'm telling a story, and therefore you, because you're all nice people, are like, ooh, when can I?
Well, we still had plenty to...
You did, yeah, which was why I kind of then let you have your chatty bits.
Yeah. I think also with the whole stuff taking all the stuff away from us, I think good, great. I think if we go through everything with the same tools at our disposal, the same ways of doing stuff, it forces us to go, right, fucking outside the box stuff now.
But also there's shit
that's fun.
This is not like they're cells that aren't actually built to contain people like you. These are cells that are built to contain a thief.
Yeah.
Or someone who's got drunk and needs to sleep it off. They're not built like Baroon. You can't get out of there unless you got keys. Yeah. Because that's its entire function. This used to be, like I say, a processing stage. So you can assume that this would have been somewhere where they were dealing with that somnium mushroom when they were still working on it.
How much when you have those moments of kind of panic state and whatever happens with the teleporting, how much does Radiant have any sense of even on a subconscious level control over what's going on, or is he totally confused every time of just
What do you mean?
I normally give
Oh,
him a
yeah,
little
you get a
vision.
little memory.
Yeah, no, but
memory.
again, I think it was like an improv thing because it kind of happened and then started.
Yeah, I forgot to do that. I should have done that.
Is it like a sense of, oh yeah, this is what happens to me when I get this, or is it like every time it's like, what the fucking just happened to me? Do you know what I mean?
He doesn't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. It's an impulse. It's not like I'm obviously teeing it up that I want this thing to happen to the character, but it's no. It's a sense of, and nor is he particularly interested in investigating.
Excuse me.
He doesn't want to investigate what that is.
Yeah. So he's gonna. He will sort of willfully push down.
Yeah.
What
he's
might?
not gonna,
Yeah.
He doesn't care about what that is at the moment. There's more pressing things, which is getting out of the cell. I didn't mean to, and then it was just a lot of. We just wanted to get out, and he got out and made a mistake. And did. But to be honest, I'm going to say, I don't think it was a mistake. I think it's narratively interesting. I nearly died, but also, we got out and we had a really interesting chase. And it doesn't, I know it seems, and I'm very fortunate that it worked out the way that it did.
You are extraordinarily fortunate.
Yeah.
But I think by rights, and I didn't do, I'm not doing anything mechanically to keep you up, but by rights you should be dead. That's, I think, maybe I think that's maybe the first time by rights you should be dead. In my, if off the top of my,
But again, this is just, I don't think so. I'm like, this is ultimately at times it's like, being honest, it's a show, and it's like, let's make some stuff happen. I genuinely was like, I think we're faffing around here a little bit too much, to be honest. I did. This is Ben coming through, and I'm sure there'll be people in the comments that will disagree with me. I think we're faffing around, and I was like, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to make something happen, because I don't think the audience care about us like faffing around doing like a bit of the noodly stuff. So I was like, that didn't work. Let's go again. The same thing would have happened. The same thing would have happened had I done the thing that we did to the other thing. And I'm like, let's just go. And so...
Had I done the thing that we did to the other thing?
So had I succeeded in wanting to get out of the cell?
Yes.
The same thing would have happened. So, like...
Yes.
The result would have been the same.
Yep.
And so I was like, well, let's get out and see what happens. And it did. And you're right, I should have been dead.
Yeah.
But Doug was brilliant and
Yeah.
was really quick thinking. And that thing happened. And then
And
we
he
had
rolled a 2.
Yeah, and we had
She
a
could have rolled
lovely...
a 4,
Yeah.
which I assume would have meant 4 guards would have been in that room.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Which I would have acted differently had there been 4 guards to 2 guards. I was like, I'll have a go. And you know, had I done web, maybe that would have worked out differently.
Yeah.
But like chromatic orb didn't work out. A lot of things didn't work out.
bleak.
And
Yeah.
it's just I never roll. I don't use chromatic orb now because I just roll badly on
Me too, for some reason. It's
on
always
attack
bad.
rolls.
But could we just say you rolled, and was it an 18 in the
I
tower
know.
of Doom?
Yeah.
Thank God.
You
Still
broke
don't
it.
trust
You
it.
broke the
17,
curse.
I
I
think.
still don't
You broke
trust
it.
Which meant that your gear was there, which is really fortunate.
was
Because I think otherwise you not having gear is only fun for a bit.
It's fine, arguably, for these two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, technically,
They would need to
if we're playing rules as written, you need an arcane focus or something, which I'm kind of allowing you to just hand wave.
But it's kind of cool as well, though, because there's something about that kind of finding the weapons. If nothing else, that you could have stolen one of the spears. We
Yeah.
could have snuck away without all our gear, and figured it out from there. Not that any of us would want to, but.
So what are you doing next?
narratively, that would be
Are you
interesting.
sneaking back in to get her?
Well, I mean, let's also not go over the fact that we've left
Parvis.
Parvis as well. Because
Yeah.
it's the
How
last
does that
time
feel?
we see Parvis. Oh, I mean, yeah, it's like it's a weird feeling because I'm attaching a different sense of tribe to Parvis than I am to Dolly. So I want to get Parvis back because I want to get Parvis back because of what he represents and because I think he needs that time with himself and because obviously I've grown close to Parvis. But I've got this attachment with leaving Dolly behind, which is more tribe and it's more that it's instinctual, but it's proactive. It's an active decision it's an active love. Rather than totally instinctual and totally just, well, this is what we do. This is your kobold, your tribe, we do, this is for the greater good. There's an active love with Dolly.
Yeah.
So when I left Parvis, it was still about like, what do you want to say to themselves? What do you want to say? That kind of thing.
It was also with his permission, which is
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
But it was his idea.
yeah, exactly. So it felt different.
Acting.
So it,
I have
Okay,
just
anyway.
had to be a Scottish man.
So it felt different. It felt like a different kind of leaving behind. It had inspiration, but also it was still a feeling of for the greater good. Whereas for Dolly, it doesn't feel like, okay, we're leaving Dolly behind for the greater good. It feels like we're leaving behind someone in a way that I have grown as a character by feeling left behind myself.
Yeah.
especially when he was present for that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he'd be more aware than the others would, like
This-
where she's at right
This
now.
entire episode for us was live to fight another day.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything we did was like,
Yeah.
you've just got to get out of there so that you can have a go at regrouping and trying again
Yeah.
because this has all gone wrong. If we don't get out of here, we can't reset this and try. We have to leave them behind. We are in so much trouble. There is no way I don't think we could have stayed in those walls.
I as an actor, as a player, whatever, role player, like I was always gonna leave, but I wanted to role play the moment of either me
Totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
the character
yeah.
was always gonna
Yeah, yeah.
wanted to leave in that way, but as the character
Needed to have that moment.
needs
with
to have
the
that moment
character.
of like I can't just leave without
Yes.
weighing up because of, this is exactly what happened. He feels like he's just doing to Dolly what others did to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It is wonderful to kind of imagine what would have happened if we had decided not to escape from the cells and instead to trust in Dolly
Yeah.
being able to sort something out. And I was thinking, the whole time we were in the cells, I was thinking, is it better to just stay here and wait for
I know,
Dolly's
yeah.
mad to work her magic? Or, because if we break out, we risk getting killed despite
That's
whatever
what I
Dolly
was
might be
scared
able
of.
to do.
Oh,
Totally.
but I
You
just,
wouldn't
no. And also, it's like we could do, but we walked in, were relatively harmless when we were put in cells. Like it's the level of hostility. Gloam I hate because they're just so like we don't trust anyone or whatever. It's just like all like that hostile, and it felt just incredibly hostile. Even though we kind of came in and we were with the midnight moon, we were with the savior, and we were still treated with hostility. There's
Yes.
no,
Yeah.
And I think the point of that is, if you had not burned down the Somnium, you would have been treated differently again. Because
These people tried to kill my family. Like, they know who I am.
no, I mean the children of the Midnight
Oh,
Moon.
yeah. I thought you were the globe.
So they would have been much more amenable to everything. I mean, the congregation were anyway. And actually, I think there's enough. There's enough in Celandine that she was almost sympathetic to towards the end. Do you know what I mean? So were you there for the? I don't want to have to. I really think you should put your hands out. I think
They
you were.
were in the room. Yeah,
You know that she's not like grabbing him and restraining him. She wasn't necessarily meant to be like that either. I think she was meant to be much more fervent. But I think there was a lovely moment when Dolly kind of went, "How old were you when?" Oh, you would have missed this. That Dolly said, "How old were you when you came here?" And she was like, "Oh, I was 18." Or implied she was like 18 or 19. And Dolly was like, "Yep." Sort of in this really grim way, actually,
Yeah,
that was like, okay,
You're a
so
victim too.
like a young,
Yeah, you all make dumb decisions.
young adult who he could essentially manipulate. But she was. You saw a different version of her to the version that I saw in the night before. Like she was completely unflappable the night before, because she's absolutely in her own territory, and she knows she's extremely confident and and has very high status here.
Like I had to roll high to evade her perception.
Her passive
Like
perception is high.
she's in control. Like in this space.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And so, but then immediately the Messiah turns up and she's like, whoa, 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 whoa. But because she's so on it and she's so competent, she's like, yes, but also. Even if she's not suspicious of you, she's suspicious of the people around you because there's never been an attack on a Somnium outpost. You know, probably not. And yet, you guys, there's all this mad stuff happening, and then you guys turn up. Now, what we haven't even dealt with
We
is
don't
that
even
there's...
really know what the mushrooms are all about, really.
No,
Like,
you
how
don't.
they factor into everything that's going on.
Because it's one thing if he's getting everyone high on it. He's getting high on his own supply. Like he talks about using it himself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he has. I'm quite specific with his wording. I don't think he ever says he takes it. I think
I
he
thought he
says
said it gives him some like.
I think he says it gives him power, but I don't think he
Right.
specifies that he takes it.
I thought-
You remember him taking it
Oh, maybe I was
back in the day. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
How do we run the next sessions? Do we do it where we're present for the conversations that Dolly's having?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be a big split table again. Big chunk of the four of you, big chunk of just the two of us. Because otherwise I think it's really hard not to metagame, and it's really hard not to
Massive metagame.
sort of try and even subconsciously combine your plans into a more efficient one.
So
I think it makes it really interesting too. I like not knowing what
Yeah.
happens in those conversations
Yeah.
because for me, I don't have to metagame.
Yeah.
Elvis can actually be completely ignorant of what's happened when he's not around,
Yeah.
and I like that
Yeah.
because it means that for me it means that there are surprises to come.
Yeah. Oh, and there are. And with that, we should roll some polling. And I can talk about my favourite bit, which was like, it was the Dolly and I, but particularly the Dolly conversation with Knox. It just like, it's very satisfying. Knox has been around in my head for a very, very, very long time. In fact, he's probably the NPC that you guys... He is the NPC, other than, I guess, themselves, who has been the longest in the game and haven't met. Because the main NPCs from the story, you know, the Spider Prince and the Spinner, even people like Graunoth, you've met all the Antiqua, you've met all these people within kind of 8-10 episodes. We met the Grenweirds. We've met Yilda. We've seen Leathmal, the Tree Speaker, now in a vision. We haven't met any of I's tribe, but when we were doing the backstory, before we even played, it was very clear that, like, to try and get individuals from I's tribe that I is friends with is to kind of defeat the point of how kobold tribes work.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about anything.
No.
So the person that's been the longest stewing is Nox. So it's just very exciting when you get to actually have those moments. Right, what
Got
did
any lockpick, by the way.
Oh, you're
Glad
welcome.
I got to see that.
What did you get, Star?
140.
Whoa!
108.
108.
42.
Baby.
67.
Oh.
2 away from this.
Didn't you have like more?
124.
124.
I can tell by your you're so thrilled. You're like, oh.
So proud of herself.
That's really well done.
Win again.
Right, well, these guys are packing up. So
Bye.
that'll do for us. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode of Action Surge. We're going to be back next week with a split table. Lots of
we
stuff
are.
to
We
do.
can turn up late, right? They're, like, she's going first.
Yeah,
It's
don't
like
come for the
2
first.
hours.
Yeah.
Fine. If we're doing a 2-day record,
Should we do the
don't
first
turn up.
half, like just half you and then just half us? Or just spread it out? Bye.
Well, in any event, however it shakes out, we will see you soon for more adventures in the world of Reliquiae. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
D&D!